Hey guys, this is Ryan with Woodman Controls. Now that we have the HTML5 upgrade done, I wanted to give you guys kind of a video you can refer back to see how it all works. It's pretty simple and straightforward. This will just help kind of get you through some of the tough spots. So you log in where you always did. When you log in the first time, well, not even the first time, really every time, since this is all HTML5, it loads in the browser and it'll be a lot faster than what you dealt with before. So it doesn't load all that background information and all that. It'll pop up a lot quicker. I'll give you kind of run through here. On our main page here, the colors all mean something on this, so it's even a little more color intensive than the older system was. You can see for our layer here, there's layers on here. This is space temperature, so obviously if it's cold and 60 degrees, we're going to see blue, and if it's really hot, it's 80 degrees. Most of the hospital, what I'm displaying here on the main summary page is the return air temperature of the air handlers. So it gives you a pretty good average temperature of what's going on throughout the building, and you can see pretty quick. Now LTC, we don't have a return sensor, so I'm actually broadcasting just the supply temperature. It's always probably going to show a little cold, and we could take that off or something. We just don't have any temp sensors over there to really monitor what that temperature is. And then down here in the middle, we have all the major pieces of equipment. So chiller systems, new and old, boilers, air handlers, and all of these are selectable also. So if I click on chiller system, it'll just drive me right to it. All we're doing with this is giving you a status, supply temp, and if there's any active alarms going on with it. So really, it's just a very general summary on this page. Staying on this, on the left-hand side of the screen here, so on your old system, it was very graphics driven. This one's the same way, but there's a whole tree on the left side that gives you the summary of the entire building and how it's laid out. So if I want to go to the inpatient section, like we'll start with that, I can either click on it right here, or if I'm in this section over here and I want to drive to it quicker, I can just click on the inpatient side over here. Now, let's go through this floor plan here a little bit. The temperature again is being displayed inside these circles, and that's representative of what the temperature is in the space. There's also a floor plan layer, and the floor plan layer, I believe, is what you had on your graphics before that would show whether it's not over or under set point. So sometimes it's a little easier indication to find out if things are working or not working. So you can select between those two. It would default to space temperature right now. And one note on the summary page, since these are return temperatures, the floor plan layer isn't really useful here because there's no floor plan point. I don't have any set points to refer it to. So it's just going to show red like it's not working. And really it's not, because there's just not a floor plan layer on that. So let's come back over here. On here, again, it's just a drop down arrow that I can select it here, or I can select my arrows and move through it that way. It should load up very fast. All these devices are just clickable links, and anything you see here where it says like AC118, we can change these names to say whatever we want. So if we want to have it say patient room 100 or whatever other item you want it to be, that's no problem at all. We can update those pretty much at any time. For equipment statuses, like you see here, so on the main page we had more of a summary grid. Here, they call this a hamburger icon, this little 3 dots and 3 lines, and that means there's a hyperlink and something you can click on. So if I go over that and you'll see my cursor turns to a little arrow and I click on that, it'll take me to the chilled water system for that part of the building. So let's go back over here to inpatient. And then same for air handler. If I click on that, it'll take me to the air handler. So anyway, let's go into one of these zones. And I want to do this because there's a couple of pieces inside of here that I want you to see too. So on the older system, you had to go to another page in order to do overrides and things like that. I kind of tried to spell out, and it's a little different because you have a couple different versions of controllers out here, so they all operate a little bit differently. I tried to make them look as consistently as I could, but let's say I want to override our VAV damper, and I even put a little OVD there so that you have an idea that this is an override point. This is what it's actually running at right now, is 49%, and if I click at it, I can come in here and I'm going to set it to a 1-minute override at 50% and hit apply. Now it's going to give you pending for just a second, and again, depending on the controllers, it'll go fast or slow. And it's going to put that purple box around that point so you can see that it's in override, and then our value updated to that as well. this little arrow here on the side will take you down to the set points for this particular zone. So we're on AC 118, AC 118. When I hit the set points block, it's going to pop up like an internal window here. This is the other way you would see overrides. So on some of the main screens, I tried to make this slightly more obvious, like this. On setting screens, just like in the old system, purple means it's an override. So I can either release it to auto here, or I could even override it from here also if I wanted to. So that gives you your override ability right there. The coils and all that, these all move and pulse just based on whether or not there's a heating percentage. These are, I tried to keep with all the same values you were looking at before. Heating source, so this is the boiler that's serving the coil, and air source, this is the air handler that's serving the backside of the VAV box. The other item on this page is the trend graph. So we put quite a bit of time into making these a lot nicer than they were in the past. So this trend graph is about, the data is about an hour old. So everything's coming off your supervisor now. So this data is forced up to the supervisor about once an hour. So it's just slightly delayed in getting there. But you can see it pulls up space temp, and space temp is automatically a comparison with the cooling set point, the space temp, and the heating set point. So obviously you want to see that green line as close to in between those as you can. Now if I want to see the airflow, or well, let's go with supply air temp. NVO spare to in, that is supply temp on VAV boxes. I know some of the terminology is a little hard to deal with, but that's how it's set up on those older, this is one of the older parts of the building. And then actual flow. Now this would be kind of neat because this will give you a tract with the set point. So that's our active flow set point, and then our actual flow. So you can see how your damper reacts going through. That floor plan point, again, this is that one that's plus or minus, 4 or 5 degrees, seeing how far off set point you are. So those are all selectable through here. Now the other nice thing is I can come into this range and I want to pick the last, say, 72 hours instead of just 24 hours. When I click that, it's going to update this screen and give me a whole lot more information. So if I go back to actual flow, there's my days, several days worth of information. And if I want to go to this week, I can just say this week, and it'll update and give me all of this week. If I want to say this month, I can go to month and say this month, and it'll keep summarizing as you go. So that's kind of how that's set up. And you should see all these automatic setups for each one of these. So every time I go to a new screen, it will default to the last 24 hours. And so that's what we'll see here. Now it looks like we're actually using well, actually, it looks like someone just turned the set point up is what happened on this one. Let's just go to the last 72 hours and see if that's happening a lot. So you can see someone's been moving our set point adjustment around, and that's why you're seeing the set points move like that. Anyway, so all right, so that gets us through these main things. And again, if you want to go to any piece of equipment that's serving this box, you just click it and it will take you to that piece of equipment as well. Let's keep going down the list. So each floor plan is going to be the same way. So we have an administration area. We can go look at fan coil units. Now this one I'm working on right now, we're having some trouble getting the graph to populate. It's on the Grundy 3 stuff. We'll have that fixed shortly. So you'll see all the same comparisons on this. Now, these ones have, the newer controllers have what we call alarm setups right on the page. So the older ones, you didn't see that. There's no alarm section because they're just not alarmed the same way. The newer controllers are capable of more, so we get to see it. When I click on this, I can enable and disable my alarms right through these pages. So I can disable and that alarm won't happen anymore. Or I can click enable and it will. And if I go to something like space temp, it'll come in here and give me the actual information saying if we're above set point by 5 degrees for 60 minutes, it's going to go into alarm. Or if I don't want to use that alarm at all, I can just hit disable and it won't work at all. Or I can hit enable and it will turn it back on. And if I hit latched, what that does is once it goes into alarm, it will never go back to automatic unless someone goes and clears it. And there's also a way, once it goes into a latched alarm, another little button will pop up here saying clear alarm. Now we usually only use those on like filter statuses, and there's not a whole lot of that on your facility here. The controllers are just a little bit older. All right, so let's just go through each section here. So as we go through each section, you're going to see we have all the same information you were used to before. If there's a pressure control or something like that, we're trying to display that little bit of information. Same thing going into these with exhaust fans and all that. You have all the information on your alarms. Sometimes I have to display them a little bit differently depending on the age of the controller, but I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. All right, so now that we've gotten through most of the summary plan stuff, let's go down to equipment. Now in this tree, if you see a folder, the folder indicates there's not a graphic for that. It's just a placeholder for everything else that's underneath it. So let's open up equipment, and we have central plants, which will give you a little bit more information here. I have air handlers, which will give you information and status of all your air handlers here. Exhaust fans, this would be all the exhaust fans throughout the building, including the ones with the pressure control and things like that. Every one of these is clickable just directly through these links, and I added a few things on the exhaust fans that seemed useful, that you could actually do overrides and things right from here. So if you want to turn on an exhaust fan, you can actually make it active from here. Unit heaters, and this will give you your cabinet unit heaters and their current status. And again, these ones that you're only seeing alarm and normal on some of them, those are the newer controllers that have that point available, and the older ones are the old Predators that don't have that point available. I tried to give as much as I could on the stuff I could. Decontamination tank. So if we go under, let's say, air handlers, you're going to see the different air handlers in here, and we'll go to, let's just go to the air handler 1 DC. So this setup is going to look real similar to what you were just seeing on the other equipment. Again, tried to model it after what you had before. You have the alarming information because this is a newer piece of equipment. You can go to the set points page, and this is where how it's set up to run. So again, this is the same stuff you had on the set points page before. It shouldn't require any. It's not new. It's just a little bit slightly different interface, but it's all the same thing you had before. So it shouldn't require a whole lot of training on this. And then the last item, because we don't have a ton of space on the page, we put the trends on a separate location on these. And same thing here. This will monitor space or static pressure versus, and these are all the trends that are available. So if I do like supply air temp, this is the status of supply air temp. If you want to see your effective dehumidification set point, there it is. If you want to see what your mixed air temp has been, there it is. So we tried to put all these things available in one spot for you. All right, so now we're through the air handlers. Let's go down to exhaust fans. So same on this page. I can click on any one of these and it'll take me directly to that exhaust fan. This is another one of those. We got to get the trend fixed. We're still working on getting that little piece of it working. Some of these newer ones, again, it'll have that alarm capability. Some of the older ones are not going to have that alarm capability. They still alarm. They're just not alarming graphically in the same way. Fire alarm system, it's just whether or not it's normal, and then these modulating dampers, whether or not it's doing venting. Schedules, this is going to be real similar to what you had before. I still have to do the Niagara 4 updates. This image will change just slightly, but when you click on something, you can change it to whatever you want for a time span. Now, it looks like you guys do very, very few trends, or I'm sorry, very, very few trends schedules through here. So it looks like just a few zones in the admin area are being schedules and the door locks. If there's more that you want to get set up on schedules, let me know. We can get more linked up and more set up, but I just didn't see a whole lot being used now, and most everything was set to 24 hours. So I'm going to kind of leave it as that for right now. Alarms, I'm going to skip over reports here real quick. Alarms is just like what you had before. It looks pretty much exactly the same. So you have your force clear, acknowledge, it does all the same things it did before. Advanced configuration, this takes you into where you can actually see the whole database and audit histories and all types of stuff. That one, frankly, you can get yourself into some trouble, but it's all password protected, so whatever you were able to do in the old system, you'll be able to do in this system kind of the same way. And then if you click on the Woodman Controls link, that's going to just take you to our service page. So if you need to contact us for service or anything like that, you can fill it out just directly right on there. Let's go to the report section here quick. So everybody, when you log in, you have your own report section, and this is where you can make your own dashboards for information you want to know. So I'm going to create a new report, and this lets you pick the layout you want. So I'm going to do We'll just stick with what we have right there. And then down here on the bottom, it's going to give you charts, and these charts show the kind of page you want to show off. So I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to show a couple of gauges. And then I'm going to come over here into my history folder, and under the history folder, you're going to see a couple ways it's set up. Now, we spent quite a bit of time, and we set up some history groups. So each one of your zones and equipment now has its own folder. So I should be able to pick, let's just try it, FanCoil Unit 1, and these are all the trends for FanCoil Unit 1. So I'm going to add, and again, I'm just dragging it right out of there. I'm going to drag my effective cooling, my effective heating, and my space temp. And so now I've got a trend showing what that stuff is. And then let's say I don't want to show a trend. I want to show a live piece of data. So I'm going to come down into my Niagara network, and this takes a little digging. Points. And I'm going to grab FanCoil Unit 1, and I want to see, let's just show floor plan on this one. It's at 0, so that's not very exciting. And we'll show, let's see, heat source temp on this one, which is pegged because it's 180. So I'm going to come in here and make a little edit and say I want it to be able to go to 200. And it looks kind of silly to have blue as my heating, so I want to make that a red dial. And we say right there. So now we have that red dial. All right, now that I've made this, I've got a gauge. And again, all these I can come back and give it some sort of name. Let's add one more piece to this just to kind of show off what we can do. And let's go to, say, the chilled water plant, and I want to use, let's use chilled water DP. And I can drag that on there as well, and it'll compare that on there. Doesn't make much sense, but that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do save as. I'm going to name this Ryan's dashboard. Now global, what this means is if I select global, it means when you log into your dashboard system, mine will be on there showing that you can use mine to look at. You won't be able to edit it, but you'll be able to look at mine. If you want it just for you, then you don't select global, and it will only show up on your list when you do it. So I hit apply. Let's go back somewhere else. Now I'm going to come back to my report section again. And now I have this Ryan's dashboard. And all I got to do is click it. And it'll take me straight in there. Now I have my own list of summaries. So you could drag 25 different space temps on there, or all your air handler supply temps, or you could build a grid of these gauges with energy usage or whatever you might want to have on it versus outside air temp. And then as that comes up here, now I can do the same time span that I had before. So let's do a relative 7 days. And it'll update my entire graph and all these. Now these, again, we picked live data, so they didn't change, but then everything else will give me the data over the course of the last 7 days. Okay, so I think that actually gives a pretty good rundown of what we're doing on here. This is the log out button when you're done, and there's really not too much else to it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to give us a call, and we can update, change, and make whatever we need to have happen on this to get it to the to where you guys consider it to be done, and we'll go from there. So I hope this was useful, and please feel free to give me a call if you have any questions. Thanks.